Now, ladies and gentlemen, as blockchain technology continues to evolve, its applications within enterprises are becoming increasingly significant. Companies around the globe are beginning to recognize the profound impact that blockchain can have on enhancing operational efficiency, ensuring data integrity, and fostering trust within and across industries. Our next conversation will spotlight two pioneers in the field, Vodafone and IBM. These two industry leaders are at the forefront of integrating blockchain solutions into large-scale operations, showcasing how this technology is reshaping enterprise strategies and business models. They share their insights on the current state of blockchain adoption in enterprises, discuss real-world use cases, and highlight the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. Please welcome David Palmer and Joris Huynh. Gentlemen, warm welcome. Great to have you here. Please have a seat, Joris.
Hi.
Welcome.
Where's my
Gentlemen, a very warm welcome. Yeah, I already introduced your organizations that you're working for. Maybe you can still do a little introduction about the work that you're actually doing within this organization. David, can I start with you?
Sure. So I'm the Chief Product Officer of a new Web3 platform by Vodafone called Peerpoint. What we're actually doing is applying Web3 with telco cryptography to a number of use cases in automotive and supply chain. We're also working with a lot of the Web3 protocols on validator nodes and integration at the layer 1. So yeah, we are actively incorporating Web3 technology, especially digital identity wallets, tokenization, into real life solutions.
Yeah.
And we're live.
Interesting.
So I'm Joris, I'm a senior manager at IBM Consulting. So IBM is a big tech company, and we've been involved for many years now in the blockchain space. We build enterprise-grade platforms for various use cases.
Wonderful. Warm welcome to both of you also flying in here in Amsterdam. Now, let us start. I mean, there's a lot of interesting stories, positive stories to be shared about the implementations, but what are the biggest challenges enterprises face when integrating blockchain technology into their existing systems? Can you maybe start with that, Joris?
Yeah, sure. So it's an interesting question. I'll start by saying that actually doing a blockchain project is quite easy today compared to what it has been in the past years. A lot of companies have done POCs, and it's very easy to do a standalone project and to set it up and communicate around it. That's a given now. Then the complexity comes when companies want to scale this project or tackle real use cases that are key for their business. They come with three types of complexity. The first one is the technical choices they suddenly need to make. Going from a POC to a very large use case that is in production, you need to decide a lot of things around the confidentiality, governance. So it's not something simple. And despite all the years of the community existing and developing the technology, still kind of requires specific skills, expert skills. So it's difficult for enterprise to source those profiles. That's the first complexity. Second one is the paradigm shift. Suddenly, instead of working on centralized application that they spent years to build siloed data, they control the data, they need to open their applications, they need to work with an ecosystem, sometimes with competitors, give the data for free. So it's a shift of paradigm, and it requires education, and yeah, a lot of works on the way they control the data and they work with competitors. So that's a second complexity. And then the third one, which is a killer, is when you add technical complexity, governance complexity, and then you need to justify to your board the investment and explain the ROI you will get from the project. It's often difficult to justify. So when you mix those three, suddenly it's become a hurdle, and the project does not move forward. And that's, we believe at IBM, it's a shame because the technology is quite mature now. It can address a lot of use cases.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it's easy now, David, or were you also faced with a lot of hurdles?
So I've been in this a long time. So like yourself, I started looking at Bitcoin, I think in early 2011, 12, I can't remember, maybe 13. Then I looked at Ethereum personally, and then my quest was, okay, how can I somehow merge my personal interests with what I'm doing in my job, right, at Vodafone at the time. I did a search at the time for telco and blockchain, and there was only 4 on the whole of Google. There was only 4 returns, right? I think a few telecoms companies were looking at it. AT&T, Orange, whatever, were looking at some use cases, but that was it. So I said, okay, let me, at the time, of course, the use case was cryptocurrency, right? And I said, okay, let me look at how this technology could impact telecommunications. And the output of that was that we had 4 use cases that were taken forwards. I'm pleased to say that of those 4 use cases, 2 of them are live right now. So one of them was IoT, which is basically where we are with Peerpoint now, which is using Web3 for IoT devices to trust each other, to smart contracts to automate the transactions, and tokens to fund the assets, but also to transact.
And what is the role of Vodafone in that?
Obviously, Vodafone provides the connectivity and the enhancements to the SIM card for that SIM, a device with that SIM to link to a blockchain so it can access the Web3 capabilities. And the third one was contract management, and then the other one that's live is roaming, right? So that's actually live with other telecommunications. But the point was that at that time, I think that what was good about Vodafone is that they allowed us to do it, right? So there's a guy called Ninian Wilson, who's the head of our procurement, and he sort of said, okay, let's see whether we can do POCs, and then we'll select 4 POCs to go to MVP. 2 of them are now
POC,
live.
maybe for those who are not familiar.
Proof of concept.
Yeah.
And then 2 of them have actually become MVPs, and then 2 of them are now launched properly. But I think the key thing is what was the difficulty? Well, I think the first thing was to win over the C-level in the enterprise in Vodafone at the time to buy into it. I used to personally wait outside the door of the CTO at the time, Johan Weiberg, with my laptop saying, Johan, blockchain. And he turned to me and he said, Dave, technology is interesting, of course, but what about the business side, right? And that really stuck with me. So then my thing was, okay, let me get partners involved to show they're interested. Let me show a business case. Let me show how this thing can actually add value. And that was the approach, and it got through all of the hurdles once I changed that approach. So I think that's, in terms of the difficulty is make sure you've got a business case, right? Make sure that there's a commercial side to it. That's why ICOs failed. Of course, the biggest hurdle is regulation, right? Big enterprises, run away from risk, right? They don't like risk. And where your regulatory uncertainty brings risk, right? It breeds risk. So I think some of the things that have helped recently are obviously the ETF approvals by the SEC in the US. Other regulatory advances in Europe are helping now. But we still have some issues, right? So you have permissioned blockchains where you can control who's on there. And obviously, when we were looking at, we took the permissioned approach because of security, because of GDPR, because of all of these things. It was easier to get moving that way. I personally believe that the future is public blockchains, but you still have issues, right? So I don't know how many of you know, but banks can't write to public blockchains. They can't pay gas fees because of the sanctions laws, and they need to know who's going to be getting the money from those gas fees.
Yep.
So you'll hear a lot of banks and big enterprises talking about blockchain, but they're using BESU, right? They're using a permissioned arm of BESU. because they still can't write to public chains, right? Of course, account abstraction is helping, and ERC 3443 is helping, where you're having some KYC and knowledge of tokens. But there are still some barriers. Of course, the TPS was an issue, the transaction per second. Yeah. And I think the biggest issue is architectural compatibility. Blockchains, the way it's gone before, has been a come to me. Right, so we've got this protocol, we've got a great consensus, we've got a wallet. Come to us and do everything on us, right? Whereas enterprises are based on service-oriented architectures, right? APIs. Everything's about APIs. I think the biggest advancement, and I know it goes against decentralization, but the biggest advancement is where you have trust as a service. So where blockchain, Web3 capabilities could be made available in APIs. It then fits into the architecture of enterprises and makes adoption easier. So I'll stop.
I think you can talk for hours about that, but of course also eager to learn from your side, Joris. I mean, Dave just mentioned that, the regulatory approach, right? It was tough for a lot of organizations to invest in the technology because there was no clearance when it comes to regulatory aspects. Now, of course, we don't not only have the Bitcoin ETF approved, but also in Europe, of course, the MiCAR almost in place. Are you also hearing this back from your clients, that they are like, okay, now we have more clarity, we are eager to actually work on the technology?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I can give you two examples, very insightful. The first one is actually one of the biggest deception we have personally at IBM, which was supply chain. We very early on, when IBM started working on blockchain, we wanted to work on optimization of supply chain in various industries, food, transportation, whatever. We tried to build those platforms very early on with the entire ecosystem of those industries without any support from regulators, and it was a nightmare. No standards for data, no will from the ecosystem to actively participate. Some of them were goodwilling, some of them were just on the back watching what was happening, just trying to see if there was the interest for them. So ultimately those projects failed, despite having a good business case, despite having lots of good reasons to be implemented, because there wasn't this support from regulators on the sector. It was not happening. If I look today at what's happening in finance, you mentioned MiCA, it's a good regulation. We see a lot of things happening in Europe. We often say, as European and as tech people, Europe regulates too much. I think in finance it's different, actually good that Europe regulates, so MiCA is a good thing. We've got the pilot regime for financial markets, which also helps the whole ecosystem, financial ecosystem, to put in place real experiments. What's happening currently on the wholesale CBDC market is a good example. The whole ecosystem experiment, and we have a clear path toward potentially a wholesale CBDC in a few years now. And I think it leads the way compared to other regions of the world, and that's thanks to the regulator.
Now, how do you guys think, I mean, blockchain is integrated in a lot of, let's say, more traditional organizations who already have quite an extensive corporate culture. How do you think the adoption of blockchain technology necessitates a cultural shift within an enterprise?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. One of the things when we were implementing it, the IoT solution, which is now Peerpoint, was control points. So a lot of enterprises, when they're evaluating how they enter a market, or they stay in a market, or position in a market, it's all about control points. Of course, with decentralized technology, like blockchain, there's no control point, right? It's about being first, and also the protocols are built on open source, right? It's one of the most open source development ecosystems in the world. So it does change the culture of, okay, we will own this, we will control the ecosystem, which is the Web 2 model, right? Which is, we control the ecosystem, we control the customers, we own the touch point, to one where essentially you're looking at how you can develop fast, how you can be a part of an ecosystem and profit from it as well. So there's a big cultural shift. I found that it does challenge the the current enterprise business appraisal.
Do you see that as well?
Yes, it's not a natural point of view for enterprises.
Yeah.
Again, I'm back to the point I was saying earlier. They spend decades building huge systems, centralized systems that they manage carefully and they protect, and they want to share their key business data, right? And suddenly we tell them, you can do better if you open everything, and if you work with some competitors, if you share. So that's cultural shift, complete different paradigm.
Yeah.
And this takes time to explain and also time to justify with numbers. Sadly, it's the truth. If we can't justify an ROI by doing so, it's difficult to sell.
Now, we talked about challenges, we talked about corporate culture, of course, but nowadays everything seems to be about AI, like companies only adopting AI technology. Can you name a cool example of an organization, Joris, that you worked with lately that implemented blockchain technology, a cool use case that you can share?
With AI?
With blockchain, sorry.
Sorry, with blockchain.
Blockchain days.
Right, so indeed it's going back to AI, it's, I would say, kind of a difficult time for blockchain, probably now, kind of a winter, because of the shift we had, this big moment with Gen AI that is happening and changed the priorities for a lot of companies. If I want to share a success story about blockchain, I think what's happening in finance, again, going back to this specific sector, is very interesting. Tokenization of financial assets is probably one of the biggest use cases and trend that will transform the whole economy as we know in the coming years. By tokenizing the assets, it's way easier to own, exchange the asset, and it's also bringing a lot of efficiencies in the settlement time, settlement cost, also traceability. There's lots of ways to improve what's happening today, and all those big systems that banks have spent decades to build, and in Europe we've got big market infrastructure. This could completely change or be complemented by blockchain-based infrastructure in the future.
I totally am with that, but I also hear the big challenge when I talk myself with organizations about this. They still think about tokenization when it comes to NFTs and expensive monkey pictures. So that's it's another hurdle to actually convince them it's a little bit more than just these monkey pictures.
That's education, so it's time spent by the companies. So actually, it's not just education, it's maturity. The banks, going back again to them, they looked at NFTs. They knew it was not going to be an additional revenue stream for them, so they experimented the technology and then they identified the specific use cases of tokenization. For them, it's something that can complement their business case. It's additional revenue stream. Someone mentioned, you mentioned the Bitcoin ETF from BlackRock. It's a brand new business for them, and it's not going to change drastically their strategy, but it's an interesting revenue stream.
And David, you just mentioned already some cool examples at Vodafone. I think internally, externally, you're providing the communication facilities for IoT networks. Are you also already providing, let's say, solutions for customers for, like, let's say,
I mean, firstly, I'll say that one of the powerful things about blockchain and Web3 technology is collaboration, right? I think you were sort of saying that, part of the business model is you need to collaborate, you need to work together, you need to share code, and you need to be part of an ecosystem. To that end, I mean, we work with a number of financial and other partners to do this. Some of the examples that I think have been really powerful, I think number one is MasterCard's MTN platform, which does tokenized deposits. So essentially you can move funds directly from a bank deposit, which is tokenized into the token economy. I think another one is HSBC, who we also collaborate with, tokenizing gold. And then I think your other panelists mentioned JP Morgan Onyx, where you've got billions and billions moving through that platform all the time. So I think there's a lot of movement for real cases. In our sense, of course, we look at it from a number of ways. So some of the real use cases that we're working on now is EV charging.
EV charging,
electric vehicle charging, simply because you have two devices, a car and a charger. And a lot of the focus is on how you can get them to trust each other, digital identity, decentralized, how you can then verify, go through the authentication, which is verifiable credentials, zero knowledge proofs, and then how you can transact with them, which is wallets and tokens. And we've even extended what we're doing, and that is actually live. I think we announced the start of that in 2022.
Yeah.
But then the other side is, could you use, for example, RWA and a deepen model to fund the rollout of chargers, right? And that's what we're working on now, to say, okay, if you need 1,000 chargers or 10,000 chargers to be deployed in a rural area or a city area, could Web3 technology with Peerpoint actually change the way that that's financed, to say, okay, let's tokenize the chargers, let's allow people to invest or communities to invest where necessary, and could the returns on that investment be every charge, right? Every time the charger is used, using a smart contract, using IoT to say, okay, the transactions happen, the charger hasn't moved, but then using a smart contract to distribute the funds real time, right, to all of the investors based on token equity.
Interesting. Yeah, I think interesting that you guys are, for example, working on EV chargers. I mean, when I think about Vodafone, it's the company that is actually giving me 5G. So it's interesting that you guys are working on these initiatives. We've been discussing RWH, real-world asset tokenization, and deepen, decentralized physical infrastructure networks. Wow, that's a nice mouthful. We'll have some more discussions on that later. We had JP Morgan actually last year at our stage here for a conversation about the token systems they develop. I think already over $1 billion of value is going is being sent over their blockchain every single day. Now, curious to already close down this conversation already a little bit. What are like the emerging trends in blockchain technology that you will believe have the most significant impact on enterprise adoption in the upcoming, let's say, months or next years, Joris?
So for me, it's not emerging trends. Okay. It's things that are already happening. Okay. There's lots of work that the community does, the blockchain community does, on proving to the market that the technology can support mature use cases. It's all the work that's been done on confidentiality, making sure you can embed protection of transactions on blockchain, not display data, back to your question from the previous panel. The privacy also, just making sure that the identity is not leaked. And with that, ensuring also that if needed, regulators can audit transaction. So once you've put that in place, you can address a lot of use cases, and it's regardless of the blockchain you use behind, permission, public. So once this triptych is addressed, it's a clear win for the blockchain industry, because then suddenly it's way easier and way more comfortable for companies to envisage blockchain as a credible technology for their use cases. And then after that, there's all the work that's already been going for years on performance, scalability, connecting the different blockchains together, so interoperability of protocols. All those, once it comes together, and it's a good reputation from companies, it will be a mainstream technology.
Cool. David, are you excited, I guess, about deepen when it comes to facilitating that, or other trends as well?
Yeah. So I think the main trend that will be critical for turning adoption is what I call convergence, right? So it's the ability of blockchain Web3 technology to work with other technologies within a service-oriented architecture. So making APIs available, integration with legacy systems where enterprises have spent billions and billions already forward spent on it, so they're not going to change it. So it's the ability to blend in and provide specific services for specific use cases and problems. I think that's really important. I think some of the things that are moving that forwards in terms of interoperability and extending outside of the traditional boundary. I think we've got to remember that there's maybe 330 million crypto accounts, but there's forecast to be 5 billion digital wallets by 2030. There's over 8 billion smartphones, etc. So in terms of adoption, crypto is very low, right? So I think convergence with digital wallets, not crypto wallets, but digital wallets, convergence with mainstream finance, convergence with better user experience on the mobile phones will be absolutely critical. And I think things like account abstraction are one of the trends that will take this beyond where it is now. It takes it outside of the boundary. It potentially takes crypto and tokenization to merge with the TradFi world. And I think we're moving towards a world of wallets, and where crypto and blockchain can interoperate with those wallets, which we can support with the SIM card, but that's another conversation. That will be critical. And I think the last but not least important thing is tokenization. Yeah. I was on record maybe 5 years ago saying tokenization is going to be blockchain's killer app. The ability, just hitting the bottom line, for tokenization to bring new liquidity to enterprises, to allow them to bring liquidity to their assets, to bring to have new business models, to have new ways of interfacing and interacting with financial companies is going to be absolutely massive, right? And I think that RWA will be the turning point, because it gets blockchain and Web3 into the mainstream finance.
Now you're on record again, so let's see in 2 years if tokenization...
I don't give financial advice.
Exactly. Yeah. Wonderful. David and Joris, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.